Welcome. My name is George Pearson and I run the How To Gurus channel here on YouTube. Most of the videos in my channel are short demonstrations of the different tools and techniques you'll find in various software programs. Right now I have several hundred of these quick videos available on YouTube. This video though is different. This is part of a new series of longer demonstrations that I'm doing to show you how to complete complex projects from start to finish using a variety of techniques and tools. All of the images I use in these projects are in the public domain, and I've included a link to the pictures in the video description in case you want to work along using the same images. Okay, let's move on to the project. In this Photoshop Elements text program, we're going to look at how to fake some 3D text. This is kind of a 3D, looks like it's glowing sitting on a wall, and fairly straightforward process. Let's take a look at what we have over here on the right hand side, and we'll then go ahead and build this from scratch. First off, of course, there is that background. There's just kind of a taupe kind of a color in here, kind of a darkish tan color. Behind that we have our shadowing across the bottom and a little bit inside. There's a shadow layer. Above that we have our glow. Right there, so we have a glow and a shadow. And here, this is just a copy of that glow right there. Then we have our text. So there's a dark text in the background there, and then white text on the foreground. So there's our dark text. See, the dark text has a, actually let me just hide this up here. There you go. Now I can really see it. There's the dark text, and I have a bevel and emboss on that. And what that gives us is the shadowing. So you have dark on the one side and the light on the other side. It's actually a beveled emboss. And in front of that, we have this flat text. So sitting on top of that bevel and emboss, it looks like it's a 3D effect text. It's kind of, again, it's a bit of a fake, but it works. It looks like it's 3D text. And then we have this white outline in here as well. So this is just white text, just like that. And then this is text that is a little bit smaller than the white text to give us that kind of a white outline. And then we just put in the different glowing effects in here to give us that glowing option. Okay, so pretty straightforward as you can see. Let's now go ahead and build this and see what we have. Before we start, let me just show you the typeface we use. I'll go up here so we can click on our type tool. And this is one that I found called AR Destine Regular. I think this comes with either in Adobe products or with Windows. I don't know. I just found it inside of my type fonts. But if you do a search online for Destine, you'll find that typeface. But really, any big, square blocky typeface will work out real fine for this particular look. Okay, let's now go ahead and begin working on this and build this. The first thing I want to do is to create a file that matches the original file. Now the file size actually is a lot bigger. You see there, it's a very large file size. I don't need to have that much file for this particular technique. So let's just come in here a little bit. I'm going to use my rectangular marquee tool and just pull a selection around like that. So this is now selected, as you can see here, and I'm going to then copy that. So edit, copy. What that does is it takes that size and puts that size in the clipboard. Okay, let's deselect. Let's now make a new file. File new, blank file, and there's the size that I just set with that copy. We're doing it from the preset clipboard. Choose OK. And it gives me the same size. Now I need to zoom in on this. Notice that this is 25%, that's 50%, so I need to zoom in a bit. So I'll just make this larger and zoom in a couple of notches, and that should be just about the same thing. Looks like it is. Okay, now I want to put a new layer here and then give us that background color. So let's just get this out of the way. Back over here, new layer, there it is. We'll be doing a paint bucket fill. So let's go over here to look at our color swatches, and let's see what we have in here on our color swatches. It's pretty close to that. Looks pretty good. It's a little lighter. This is a little more faded out, but we can modify that if we want to later on. But let's go ahead. We'll use this dark yellow as our starting point. And let's get this out of the way. Paint bucket and fill. There it is. Now again, it's too bright really for what I want to have on here, so we're going to modify this a bit. And let me bring up the other file. We'll put that here, go here, and then using the hue saturation, so adjust color, hue saturation, we can come in here and we can kind of move this around a little bit until we get closer to that effect. And that's pretty close. Maybe a little shift on my hue. There we go. So that now matches that coloration. It's just doing a little bit of a hue saturation adjustment. I brought my lightness up, saturation down, and I brought the hue down just a touch to kind of match that off color. So there we go. You can use any color you want to, of course, in the background. I just kind of wanted to match that, make it nice and clean. The next thing we want to have is our basic text. So let's put our type in, go to the type tool, and it should be sitting at the same settings we had before, except the color is going to match the last color we used, which of course is the one we used for the background. So let's change our color, and I'll scroll up here and we'll change that to white. Click inside here someplace, and I'll just type in logo. So there's the basic type. Everything else is going to be based off of this one type layer. Let me bring back up our sample again, and you can see here we have 2 layers plus the fill up there for that final layer. So the white layer is showing us just the edge, and then we have a dark orange coloration with a bevel and emboss placed on that, and that's again just another layer. So I'm going to leave that as our main layer. Let's do the inside bright orange first. That's kind of fun. Hold the control key down, click on the icon here for your type, and that selects just the lettering. We can now modify that selection and bring that selection in a little bit. So modify, contract. I'm not sure what these settings should be here, so I'll just use the default of 6 and see what happens. That's actually pretty close. So what this gives me is a selection in here that's just inside of that white selection. I can now make a new layer. There we go. New layer. We can go to our paint bucket, and let's bring our swatches up again, color swatches, and we can find a nice bright orange or yellow in here. We can always change the color later on. Just do a bright pure yellow, and then fill, and it fills that, and then we can deselect. Now again, if you don't want that color exactly, because it's on its own layer up here, it's easy to modify your color. Just go up to enhance, adjust color, hue saturation, and in here we can make it brighter or darker. We can adjust the color a little bit like that until you have just the color that you want and the amount of brightness you want in there. You can even go lighter or darker. So because it's on its own layer, it's completely adjustable using the hue saturation for any color that you want. So that's our secondary layer. So we have the basic logo done. Now we want to create that background darker shape. So I'm going to grab the logo text. Let's pull it up to the new layer button. I'll pull it down below. This one's going to be our background. I'm going to call it 3D because it's kind of our fake 3D layer. Let's hide this and let's hide that. I want to fill this, make this that kind of a dark orange color. So let's go over to our type. Now this is still a type layer, so I can select that. And let's look at our colors in here. And let's find kind of a dark, that's a dark red orange. That should work out pretty well. There we go. So far so good. Let's give this a bevel and emboss. So we'll go over here to our effects. And I want a hard bevel this time, little simple sharp inner. Just drag that on top. There's that hard bevel look. You can adjust the amount of bevel if you want to by going up here to your layer style and style settings, and then you can adjust that bevel amount to get just the amount of bevel that you want. But for what we're doing, you can go clear to the edge. That's fine. Of course, we can modify our color as well. Let me bring the layers back up again. You can always go back in and adjust or modify the color of this if you want to, just by either changing the color of the type or by doing a hue saturation shift. Let me bring our other layer up there. There we go. So that's the logo layer right there. That's the white. Here's our 3D layer. I'm now going to use my cursor keys to move this over and down a little bit. Just kind of like that. And that gives us that effect of kind of almost a drop shadow effect, but we can see that it's actually a hard lettering. So it looks as if the lettering is kind of a thin 3D effect instead of being just that hard lettering. And then there's our foreground. So that gives us our kind of basic 3D option in here. Now if you want, you can go fancier on that one. There's some fun stuff you can do. I can actually take this and move this around, grab this inside, and if you pull it in a little bit like that, there we go. So we're seeing different sides now of that. It looks a little more as if this is actually 3D. We're looking straight at it. So again, it's just a way of tricking the eye on that. There's a little movement there with the keyboard. So you can play around with that to give just the right look, to give that effect of this being a 3D lettering kind of built and applied to a wall. Now to apply our glow onto this thing, we want to put that glow in here. So we have a couple of things happening. Let me bring back up the sample again so you can see that. We want to have a bit of a drop shadow underneath and then glowing in behind our letters in there. So it gives a kind of an effect of it glowing on the wall and then a little bit of that drop shadow. So to do that effect, we want to select our letters, and we'd be putting our glow in behind all of this stuff. We want to make it on that selection. So again, hold down the control key, click on the icon, that selects the lettering. Now I selected that background lettering, as you can see there. Make a new layer underneath of that text layer above our background color so that the shadowing and the glowing happens on the wall but not on the lettering itself, which is above. Now the lettering is selected. I want to have the wall selected, not the lettering. So we need to invert our selection. Select, inverse, and when you see the lines outside there, that lets you know the outside has been selected. Okay, now we want to put in a little bit of our drop shadow effect in there. I want to have the same color as the wall, just darker. So I'm going to use the eyedropper tool. And let's go to this layer, select that, just click in there anywhere. That should set that color as that background. Let's just see on our paintbrush here. Okay, kind of a soft brush. Size looks pretty good, 77 pixels on mine. That looks fine. Make sure we're on that correct layer. And I'm just going to kind of go like that. You can see there, you can kind of see something underneath happening. Now it's the same color as the background, so we want to bring that down. Just color, hue saturation. Let's bring the lightness down. You can see there it is. There's that darker shadowing happening. You can increase your saturation around it as you like. And you can see how it's coming in behind the text. Now I want to have it kind of just underneath the text. We're going to erase back in a little bit. Go to our eraser tool, make sure you're on the right layer, and I'm going to bring the eraser up in size. Like that. Let me make sure I'm on a soft brush. There we go. Oh, didn't stay. Try that again. Okay, soft brush. Bring the size up. Too much. That's pretty good. I'm just going to come in here and just kind of soften up that edge a little bit. And a little bit higher in between. I'm just tapping it. Not doing much more than just tapping. So that gives me the drop shadowing effect. I can do a little bit of that in behind the top of the letters up there if I want to. Just go back over to the paintbrush. And our brush size is off again. Let me bring that back up. That's about right. Let me put this on another layer so I can have some more adjustment ability in here. I'm going to call this one bottom shadow. And let's call this one top shadow. Make sure we don't lose our T in there. Try that again. There we go. Just a little bit in there. A little bit in there, and again we need to darken that down a touch. So hue saturation, and I can then adjust the amount of shadowing. There it is with the hue saturation, and once again I can bring down the size a little bit here with the and soften it up with the eraser tool. Notice I'm keeping that selection going the whole time because I always want to have this stuff clean from the lettering. I don't want to have anything on the lettering. It's in behind, but it's still a good idea to go ahead and do that. Okay, now we want to put our glow in. I want to have a nice orangey glow. So let's go up here, use the color picker, grab that orange, and then let's put a new layer in right there. So, new layer, glow, and using the orange color, we're going to paint in some glow. Now, I want to have a larger brush for this. So let's just bring our brush size up a bit. That's pretty good. Now, if we go back to our sample again, see how I have the glow kind of on the sides, but mostly on the tops. So that's the effect that we're going for. So there's our glow layer. And we're going to adjust this again once we get it into place. A little bit in there, a little bit in there. Just a touch maybe in some of those spots. So I'm basing this glow on the original coloration. I'm doing that on purpose so that it kind of blends together. Now let's go back to our eraser tool, and I can soften that edge up a little bit with the eraser tool. So I'm using a very large eraser and just kind of tapping to bring that down a bit. Now let's go back again to our hue saturation and adjust this settings. So enhance, adjust color, hue saturation. I want to bring my lightness up on this. Bring our saturation up a bit. So you really got just the lightness in there. And now we can do a couple things. So I can either bring the opacity down to have just the effect that we want on that, or we can soften this up some more by putting a blur on that. Filter, blur, and Gaussian blur. Bring it way down, and then just a little bit of a blurring in here. There's where it begins to blur. Right in there. And just kind of softens it up. Another way to do that actually is to copy the white lettering and use the white lettering as your glow. Let me show you that technique. It's a little different way of doing this, but it's an interesting way as well. We can deselect this now. Let's look at our white lettering. Make a copy of the white lettering. Pull that down to where our glow layer is. There we go. I'm going to convert this layer, right-click, and simplify that layer. So it's now just a graphic, and we can then come in and actually blur this layer. Again, just a little different approach to it this time. Gaussian blur, and again I can blur the layer out, and that gives me a glowing effect. Now, I have a little less control on this one. Notice how it has some glow happening on the bottom down there, which I don't necessarily want. So we're going to fix that as well. And the color is off by a little bit. We can adjust the color with the adjust color, hue, saturation. You can actually colorize that if you want to. And bring in some saturation, bring your lightness down. Notice as I bring the lightness down, I get a color effect in there. You can see if I change that, it actually begins to colorize that. So we can use that to apply just a little bit of color into that text. You see kind of a yellow coloration in there. Now, I don't want to have the glow at the bottom, so because this is just a graphic, now I can take my eraser tool and come in and, I'm using the wrong thing there. Let's just make sure I'm on the right layer. Okay, on that layer. I'm going to lock everything else just to be safe. Sometimes this program likes to pick layers you don't want to have touched. So let's just lock everything else in here. That's already closed. Okay, everything's locked. That's hidden, so that's fine. That's our other method. So now let's come in. I'm just going to use the eraser in here just to tap out and erase out the part of that I don't want across the bottom. And there we go. There's the 3D glowing text effect. And a couple different ways then of doing your glow. You can use the same trick if you want to that we used here on the second version with the outline, and then using the Gaussian blur to fuzz it out. You can use that same effect if you want to for the bottom shadowing as well, and then simply erase the top half of the shadow, leaving just the bottom half of the letters. So just again a couple different ways of approaching that glowing technique, but the real trick here to give it that 3D look is that you want to create that secondary layer in behind, that dark layer, which you offset by a little bit so it looks as if it's a 3D shape. Now obviously if I zoom in you can tell that that's just in behind, but at a fast glance it's a kind of a fun way to imitate a 3D text look. Thank you for watching this special Photoshop photography project video. Don't forget to subscribe so that you will get first notice of new project videos in the future. Just click on this link right here where it says subscribe here. You can get all 12 project videos in this series along with 26 special videos demonstrating the tools and techniques that I used in these projects by clicking on this link right down here. And then thank you again for watching this training video.